Hello, my name is Katie Cornell. I'm the Executive Director of the Asheville Area Arts Council, and I'm going to give you some tips for completing your Grassroots Arts Program Grant. The Grassroots Arts Program started in 1977 by the North Carolina Arts Council as a way to provide arts programming across the state. They use a per capita based formula or population based formula to provide funds for arts in all 100 counties of the state, and this is primarily through partnerships with local arts councils. The Asheville Area Arts Council has been distributing this grant since 1979, so almost from the very beginning. And the Asheville Area Arts Council is the designated arts agency for Buncombe County. So that means we are the official partner for arts funding from the State Arts Council and from the NEA on behalf of Buncombe County for regranting. This year, Buncombe County government has matched the GAP funding, Grassroots Arts Program funding, satisfying the required one-to-one or dollar-to-dollar match required by the Grassroots grant. So that means that match is not a requirement for you because it's already been satisfied. This year's funding cycle also includes American Rescue Plan funding, which is meant to focus on capacity building for the arts in our local community. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. The Grassroots Grant Program provides funding for programmatic and operating support for nonprofit arts organizations in Buncombe County. Grants range between $2,500 and $7,500, depending on the size of the organization. The deadline to apply this year is September 15th by end of day. So by midnight, September 15th. The grant opens August 15th and will close September 15th. We are hoping by late October, early November, we'll be able to announce the awards. So between that September 15th date and the announcement date, we'll be working with our grants panel, which will explain that process to you a little bit later in the presentation. By early November, we hope to have all of our grant contracts completed so that we can disperse the funds to our awardees. And then the final grant report will be due by June 30th, 2023. To be eligible to apply for this grant, your organization must have been in operation for at least 1 year and be physically located in Buncombe County. While nonprofit status is preferred, organizations that are nonprofit in nature may use a fiscal agent to apply for program funds, only program funds for if you're using a fiscal agent. You must be a full 501c3 nonprofit arts organization to apply for operating funding. A few other things to keep in mind if you're using a fiscal agent. The fiscal agent will be the one to complete the application. Both the fiscal agent and the presenting organization will sign the grant contract so that we can make clear what all of the expectations from each party are. The funding will be awarded to the fiscal agent, and they will be in charge of dispersing those funds. The final report will also need to be completed by both the fiscal agent and the grantee to make sure that everything is accurate. In the event that grant funds are not spent or are misspent, it is the fiscal agent that is liable for repayment. There's more information on our website about using a fiscal agent, and if you're going to apply this way, I encourage you to read all of that before applying. So ashevillearts.com/grants, and you'll see under eligibility more information about using a fiscal agent. These funds are for projects taking place between July 1, 2022 and June 30, 2023. Since the funds will likely not be awarded until November, or received until November, these funds can be used for reimbursement for expenses that have already occurred, as long as they occurred between the July 1, 2022 and June 30, 2023 dates. All projects must be completed by June 30th, 2023. So this is a list of allowable expenses. Program expenses that are allowable include professional artist fees and travel, space rental, advertising, marketing and publicity, website and electronic media, scripts, costumes, sets and props, music and equipment rental. Operating expenses that are allowable include salaries, telephone, office supplies, printing, postage, rent, utilities, insurance, equipment purchases, and small capital projects. Grant funds cannot be used to fund art, music, and dance therapists, artifacts, artwork purchases, contingency funds, debt reduction, fundraising events, food or beverage for hospitality or entertainment functions, school band activities or equipment, school choral activities, lobbying expenses, oral history and history projects, tuition for academic study, interest on loans, fines, or litigation costs. So funding priorities. Our first priority is to give funding to qualified arts organizations. These are nonprofit qualified arts organizations, including theaters, symphonies, galleries, arts guilds, choral societies, dance companies, folk art societies, writers groups, art festivals, and more. Second priority is given to organizations applying for a program through a fiscal agent. Multicultural programs or organizations that count as multicultural, and organizations located outside of the city of Asheville will receive special consideration. To be considered a multicultural organization, the mission of the organization must be focused on supporting African American, Asian American, Latino, or Native American cultures. For a program to be considered multicultural, it must be conducted by artists, ensembles, or organizations of color. We're going to talk more about this a little bit further in the presentation. So things that we'll be considering when we evaluate your application: completeness of the application, the eligibility of the requests, feasibility of completion, budget size of the organization, accessibility, organizational stability, arts and culture alignment, capacity building, multicultural impact, and geographic impact. And now we're going to go into these all in more detail. So the selection process begins with an initial screening by staff of the Asheville Area Arts Council. We'll be looking at completeness of the application, eligibility of the requests, and feasibility of the proposed to be done within the required timeline. Remember, it must be done between July 1, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. So completeness of the application, is all the information there? Do we not need any other information to accurately assess what you're proposing? Then that is 10 points. If we had to request additional information from you, then we will reduce that by 5 points. You'll be only receiving 5 points for that. If you do not respond when we reach out to ask for additional information about your application, you will receive 0 points in this category. Eligibility of requests. We've just gone over what is eligible and what is not eligible for funding. So if everything that you're requesting is eligible for funding, you'll receive the full 10 points. If only part of what you're requesting is eligible for funding, that's 5 points. If none of what you're requesting is eligible for funding, then that is 0 points. Feasibility of completion within time restrictions. If everything can be completed, that's the full 10 points. If we're not completely sure that your request can be completed within the timeline, and that we'll need to work with you to ensure that you meet that deadline, that's 5 points. And if we do not believe that this can be completed within the time restrictions, then that would be a 0. So applications receiving a 0 on any of these categories or a total score below 15 will not progress to the next level. Applications will also be sorted into possible funding ranges, with the understanding that larger institutions have a larger reach and greater operating costs. So organizations with a budget of under $50,000 can receive up to $2,500 grants. Organizations with a budget ranging between $50,000 and $250,000 can receive up to a $5,000 grant. And organizations with budgets over that $250,000 threshold can receive up to a $7,500 grant. After we have done this initial screening and put all of the grants into funding buckets, we will then work with our selection panel. And each panelist will score these requests individually to begin with based on this criteria. Again, they'll be looking at the application for completeness. Do they feel like they have a good understanding of the proposal based on what is in the application, or is it missing key details? So they'll put that initial score. Feasibility, how confident are they in the ability of the organization to complete the proposal based on the scope of what is being proposed, the time restrictions, and other resources needed to complete the project. Organizational stability, how confident are they in the organization's capacity to carry out the proposal? And that includes the grant reporting requirements. And we're going to go over those in more detail a little further in the presentation. Accessibility is also something we'll be looking at. How accessible is the proposed for individuals with disabilities, including physical, visual, hearing, and cognitive impairments. This is something that should be done. Any event that is open to the public should be accessible to people with disabilities. So for help with this, if you need additional guidance, there is a brief accessibility checklist provided by the National Endowment for the Arts that you can review. So the application question mostly aligned with this criteria is please share your accessibility statement and just demonstrate how the location where your event service takes place, including online spaces, is or will be accessible for individuals with disabilities, including physical, visual, hearing, and cognitive impairment. Tips, accommodations should be easy to find and clearly stated. And it also needs to say whether or not notice is required. Are these things just going to be available at the event, or do people need to reach out to you a certain amount of time before the event in order to secure these accommodations? Should also include contact information. Some examples of things that you might provide are accessible parking, accessible restrooms, accessible seating, courtesy wheelchairs, early seating options, captioning, assisted listening devices, sign language interpretation, audio description, large print, braille, tactile tours, sensory-friendly events, or relaxed performances. The next criteria that our selection panel will be looking at is how centered are arts and culture in this program. This is definitely an arts grant, and we want to make sure the arts is at the center of this. This can either be enhancing your organization's ability to fill its arts and cultural focused mission, or it can be to increase the accessibility of arts and cultural exposure to local residents. Again, that's kind of looking at the operating grant versus the program grant. The application question aligned with this are how are arts and culture centered in this proposal? Very simple, but make sure you clearly explain this question. The next is capacity building. How does this proposal increase the organization's capacity to provide or expand service offerings to local residents? And again, remember, this is tied to the American Rescue Plan funding from the state that we've received. We need to be able to demonstrate how this funding will build a capacity for the arts sector. So the question aligned with this is, how would this funding increase your organization's capacity to provide or expand service offerings to local residents? Next, we'll be looking at geographic impact. What is the impact on residents throughout the county, especially in underserved rural areas of the county? This criteria is meant to help ensure that residents throughout the county have access to arts programs. This piece is very important to the county. Remember, they are providing the one-to-one match for funding in the Grassroots grant this year. And so they want to see demonstrated how residents throughout the county are receiving arts programming. So the question aligned for this is, please explain the impact of your organization or this program on residents throughout the county. Next is multicultural impact. So reviewers will be answering the question, is this a multicultural organization or program? To be considered a multicultural organization, the mission of the organization must be focused on supporting African American, Asian American, Latino, or Native American cultures. For a program to be considered multicultural, it must be conducted by artists, ensembles, or organizations of color. The question aligned with this criteria is, if this is a multicultural organization or program, please explain. The Arts Council, the Asheville Area Arts Council, is required to spend 18% of our grassroots funding on multicultural programs or organizations. So the way the selection panel works is we will select 3 to 5 volunteers. These will be either community leaders or arts leaders, but someone with a good understanding of our community and the arts within our community, to review applications and make final funding recommendations. Panelists are expected to review each of the applications on their own using a scoring spreadsheet that is provided by the Asheville Area Arts Council. We've just gone over those questions that they'll be scoring, and even the scoring ranges that they'll be using. Staff will then combine all of the reviewer scores and average them and rank them for the panel. The panel will then have a joint meeting, review the combined scores, discuss the applications, and create their final funding recommendations. So after this is done, and all applicants will receive a letter from the Asheville Area Arts Council letting them know of the award, whether they've received an award or not. And this will also include additional notes from the panel. So you'll receive your scores. You'll be able to see what scores your combined scores were, any additional notes from the selection panel with your official notification letter. So if you were to receive an award, the next steps are that we would create a contractual agreement. Many of you have received a grant with the Asheville Area Arts Council before and are aware there is a grant contract. Just making it clear, what the expectations are on both sides before funding is awarded. During the process throughout the year, we ask that you please keep us informed of any major milestones within your project or if anything changes. We are invested in your success. We'd like to be able to share with our followers any major milestones that you reach. Your organization is required to complete a final report form by June 30th. It is very important that you complete your report on time because we are, the Asheville Area Arts Council then takes that information and uses it to complete our final reports for both the state and the county. And so when you don't complete your application on time, it impacts our final report and funding overall. So very important that you complete that report. This year, we're going to simplify it even more. It will be an online form that you will complete. And there'll be more about that in the grant contract. Just, to drive it home a little bit further, if your report is late, you will not receive funding in the next year. You will also be required to demonstrate recognition of the Asheville Area Arts Council, the North Carolina Arts Council, and Buncombe County government for this funding. And you will submit proof of that recognition as part of your final report. So something to keep in mind. Optional requirements are to send a letter or email to Buncombe County commissioners and our state legislators to thank them for this funding. That is really important for you overall, that they hear from you just how impactful this funding has been for your individual organization. So we highly encourage you to do this. To apply, you go to ashevillearts.com/grants and you will click on the Google Forms link under the Apply Now section. If you need help with your application or have specific questions, please email us at info@ashevillearts.com. No phone calls, please. If you'd like to discuss your application, please email us at info@ashevillearts.com to set up an appointment time for us to discuss. Thank you, and I wish you the best of luck with your application.